Hello, CYBL community. We just wrapped a good Q&A session with our guests, Moon Market and OG Tigris. I really appreciate their support of the shareholder community, and I really hope that their questions helped answer some of the ongoing questions that you all have. We have now coming up the Q&A number 4, which is in hopes of catching all the other questions that we did not address with our guests. So if we are repeating some, just know that it's because we want to over communicate some of the things that you're interested in. I will say that this is Tuesday evening, and we did see a very good rebound today. I think for whatever reason, we've been under a short selling attack, and I think negative market sentiment in general. And I think today we saw that turn around. Hopefully by the time you see this, it will have continued to get back to where we believe the share price should be. No predictions here, but just our own sentiment based on what we know in the pipeline and what we are working on. With that being said, let's get into the questions and answers.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark. Okay, we do have a big list here. So we'll start out with question number 1. What details can you provide on the infrastructure opportunity, and how soon do you believe you will find out if you win the contract? What is rural broadband, and why do you believe Cyberlux has the competitive advantage over the competition?
So first of all, the opportunities we're addressing are across 6 states. It's actually 47 million in opportunity now. We have some assistance with the Strike Points group. Miss Nolan is helping to help target us into particular areas, municipalities. There are 10 municipalities that we're working on with their support as well. We have, because of our acquisition of the FDB group, they have decades of experience of implementing telecom and infrastructure. We have a competitive cost advantage, we believe, and we believe we have market access in certain states and certain circumstances that will give us an advantage in pursuing those opportunities. We are driving these both as a prime contractor in certain cases and a subcontractor in others, depending upon the circumstances. We're willing to participate in any particular way that supports the initiative. We're big supporters of broadband for everyone, and being part of that is a great honor to be able to do that work if we are so selected. I will say that we see those types of opportunities continuing to roll out through all of 2022 going forward. So we don't necessarily know what quarter some of this will start to appear, but it seems to be initial money being released before year end. So we think that the beginning of 2022 is going to be an exciting go time. So we'll have more to say about that as we go.
Great. Okay, next question. I was wondering if there will be further dilution this year to pay for future acquisitions you guys are eyeing. Looking forward to hearing from you. Wish you all the best and everything with the company is working on.
So as I said in the letter, the shareholder letter dated 10/22, we believe that we will be able to hold to around 6 billion. We said 6 billion exactly to accomplish what we have in the pipeline, including into next year's pipeline based on the roadmap. We don't see anything that's changed at this point. Obviously, as share price pressure downwards continues, that puts us in a position where we have to evaluate. But we're now seem to be rebounding, at least as of close of market on Tuesday. So far, nothing's changed in our strategy or in our expectations. We do think that organic growth will be our expected accelerant for 2022, with the additional acquisitions coming in to help push us beyond our current forecast. We'll be saying more about revising 2022 as we get towards the end of the year.
Okay, thank you. Can you please address dilution in outstanding shares, as well as the plan to get NASDAQ with so many shares? I am fine with dilution for acquisitions, but can you please let me know the plan on that regard with respect to the total number of shares?
Again, as we highlighted in the shareholder letter that I referenced, that was October 22nd, we anticipated dilution to be approaching 6 billion. We're, I think, at 5.7 now, something like that. Nothing really has changed in that expectation level. I will say that, for the past 5 years, we've had no change in our float. There's been a little bit of drift on that this year, but after 5 years of holding it 3.7, I think we're at 4.3 right now. That's just part of the process of us attacking these acquisitions and getting our strategic initiatives in place so that we will actually achieve this organic growth that we want. So it's all part of the planning and part of the execution of that plan. We have 3 definitive uplisting plans that we have developed with our partners, and we'll have more to say about that in the first quarter specifically. But all of those are designed to protect shareholder value. There are a number of different ways that we can proceed. We can work our way through the queues on the OTC market. We can uplist that way step by step, and then focus on just our organic growth. Once we hit a 5 million total net asset value, that also is a trigger for a NASDAQ uplisting. So, there are a variety of ways. We're evaluating those depending upon where we see the business going and how fast we can do, whatever particular part of the process we can accomplish. So again, there just is nothing at this point that I can say definitively. So we'll come back to that as soon as we see exactly what the plans are going to be.
Okay, thank you. What does Cyberlux plan on doing with the possible $45 million if received? Will the $45 million be shown on Q4 2021 or Q1 2021? I think they meant 2022 financial filings.
Yeah. So again, as I said earlier, there are 6 states that we're addressing. The opportunity is actually 47 million now. That funding, we think part of it's being released soon, maybe before year end, but it will be through 2022, and we'll show it in the appropriate quarter whenever it posts. Again, it's not a done deal, but we feel pretty confident about what we're doing and how we're pursuing it, both from a cost and capability standpoint. We of course will be evaluating the best way to use the profits from that and invest accordingly. So far it's made more sense to try to ramp up the business and grow the business. Could we do some share buybacks? I mean, that's always a possibility. Whether we make a determination of investing in an acquisition or some other part of the business, or buying back some of the shares, we'll continue to evaluate it. I mean, nothing's off the table, but we've got to make the right strategic decision and not just a short-term thinking about outstanding share count. So,
of course. All right. Can we expect to see penny exempt status in the future?
Again, I think the approach that we're going to take, more than likely, there are 3 components to that. There's having a share price over $5, which we're a bit off of right now. I think everyone would agree. There's having an average revenue over 3 years of $6 million. I mean, we're there, but in the last 2 years, so that would put us off for a couple of years. Then there's also being able to grow fast enough and generate enough net income and ultimately profit for the enterprise, where we would exceed a 2 million dollar net asset value, or actually for us, it would be 5 million net asset value. And that, I think, is where we're going to see some of our fastest approach. So again, nothing, like I said earlier, is in stone, but we do expect to achieve that status, particularly as part of the uplisting process as we've described.
Will YouTube be used for business updates more often now?
Yeah, I think we have done a couple of quick videos here and there. This is we've had some special guest interviews that we are posting. This is question and answer number 4. So I think it's effective. I do think that the shareholder questions we get are very, very important, and we'll do as many of these as we possibly can.
Great to hear. Can we expect to acquire the use of a press release distributor like PR Newswire?
Well, we are using AccessWire now already, and I think that the distribution we've seen has extended significantly. You can find our releases on Wall Street Journal or Yahoo Finance now, et cetera, et cetera. Brennan, I'm not sure if you want to say anything more about that.
Yeah, so similar to PR Newswire, AccessWire has a big reach that we utilize, including Business Insider, like Mark mentioned, Yahoo Finance, Wall Street Journal. There's a whole list of them. So we've been utilizing that currently, and we've seen great results from just the total reach that we're able to get now, rather than posting it on our website or on the OTC market. Moving forward, would Cyberlux Corp mind updating shareholders the total amount of shares owned by retail and institutional investors per quarter?
I like this request. We're going to have to evaluate what to do here. It really is a cost and process issue for a company like ours. For example, we'll have to buy and analyze the what's known as a NOBO list, the non-objecting beneficial owner list, and analyze that data. And if there are objecting beneficial owners, you'll never know who actually has the real share ownership. So there's a cost and a benefit there, but it's probably something that is worth reviewing. So I think we'll take this as a particular project and see what we can learn from it and share the results if they're meaningful. That's something that we haven't done for a while, but given the year that the CYBL stock has had, both the ups and the downs, I think it's probably a good idea. So thanks for that, and we'll have more to say as we get some work done on it.
Okay, thank you. Between 2013 and 2020, the stock was under 1 cent despite having a partnership with the government. What was the reason behind this? What had occurred to drop the stock below 1 cent then? And how likely is it that it will happen again?
Well, in general, in that time period, the company was under an unbelievable amount of share pressure from the weight of toxic financing deals that the original CEO, founding CEO, had put the company in until 2017, 2018 timeframe, when the final debt conversions were finished. There was really, from my perspective, really no incentive to try to disclose projects. And in this time period, there were projects that we actually couldn't disclose or would not have disclosed. So until the toxicity was removed, it really seemed like a bad idea to fuel the toxic financing trade out with hurting our core shareholders with news that would simply be sold into. So we just hunkered down, tried to get through that time period. That's why the share price had its action all the way down to 0001, I believe. So that was the reason and the action that resulted. We do not have any toxic debt now. I know there is some, enterprising, anonymous short selling social media accounts that seem to want to purvey that as fact, but we don't have any toxic debt anymore. We do have debt, but it's not toxic. We have some, some payroll debt to employees that were, notes that were entered into years and years ago. We have, some trade debt that just comes from being in business. But the reality is that we have no toxic debt. So the toxic debt's been dealt with. It's been removed. The price action you've seen in the market, the best I've been informed of, and I'm no expert, but I certainly am an expert observer, like most of us. And, unfortunately, we've had over 50% of our trading volume in the last month be attached to short selling. And I've discussed this in prior videos. There's just not a lot that can be done in the short term. In the long term, we can perform and we can execute, and I think we're doing that. And I think that at least through the end of business on 12/6, when this is being filmed, seemed like we had some break in the action. At least market sentiment seemed to be going the other direction. So that's what's been causing the share decline from my perspective. It has nothing to do with any toxic debt because we don't have any. So, and there's a little bit of brief history so everyone can understand, what happened during that time period.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. I'm sure they'll love to hear that clarified. I was curious as to who your competitors are and their respective market shares in the market CYBL will be entering. What is CYBL's estimated market share?
So in some of our recent conversations with analysts and the financial community, I've described Cyberlux as an emerging hardware software Palantir-like company. And I think that's important for our shareholders to understand, how we see the makeup of the company with the 4 business units: the advanced lighting systems, the FlightEye AUS, the infrastructure technology solutions, and the infrastructure software solutions groups. Some of these are, still building towards their market contribution, their revenue and profit contribution. But, we plan on partnering with major defense competitors when we can, and targeting the business areas and segments where we can attack and choose to compete as well. I'm just not going to justify or glorify our competitors in this area because at this point, they may not even recognize us as competitors, and we like that as a competitive advantage. So I think rather than going through the exercise of trying to enumerate who we might view as a competitor, we'll see them in the marketplace. And I think everybody would appreciate having that as a result, as opposed to making us a target instead. So appreciate the question. I hope you appreciate the answer.
Absolutely. Are there any going concerns?
Well, I think, that's a phraseology that is related to SEC filings that is appropriate for us to address. But I don't have any ongoing concerns beyond the normal policy concerns, regulatory concerns, economic concerns, of course. I mean, we have, I think, just gone through another wave of fear, uncertainty, and doubt related to this next version of, or next variant of COVID. Obviously, that's had some broader market negative effects. I don't have any concerns that are beyond the normal scope of concerns that you have to have in running a company. But I do appreciate the question, and we always try to address, ongoing concern issues in our Qs and Ks. So if anything changes in there, you'll see it in the reporting, of course.
Great. Regarding the new convertible debt acquired before October 2023, the company expects the share. The company expects a share to hit 25 cents. I assume that this will hit that price earlier, leaving room for just in case scenarios. Is there an estimate of the stock price growth?
Well, first of all, we believe that this was a good financing for the company with RB Capital, and we do expect to see this growth in share price to accompany strong growth in our revenue and earnings in 2022. We don't predict share prices because there are so many factors involved in what happens there, as we've seen most recently, and so we have no control over the market, of course. What we can do and what we do have control over is the company fundamentals and trying to grow and point them up and to the right as fast as possible, and do it as optimally as possible. The 25-cent target is something that executives have incentives on. Our operating groups have incentives on. So we are all pulling in the same direction. How fast we can get there just is determined by the market and our ability to execute.
Great. If the company reaches management estimates, will dividends become a part of the equity structure?
I like to see this. I'd like to see this happen. It'll be in the future, but as we proceed with our plans, including uplisting, I believe this is part of growing the company overall, and certainly in the long term. It's a mature company thing to do, and I'd certainly like to see us reward our shareholders with that type of benefit. So stay tuned as we get to be a more stabilized and growing company in the coming years. We'll certainly be evaluating that, and I hope to see that happen as soon as possible.
Are you planning any share buybacks?
Well, we always continually evaluate the best use of capital. Currently, the best use of capital, we believe, is in trying to scale the company to hit our growth level so that, as we go forward, we can actually fund acquisitions and growth in general through operational performance. And so we do evaluate that, and there are circumstances where we would certainly step in and do some of that type of reinvestment in the company vis-a-vis a stock buyback. We just haven't had the time in our growth cycle to really effectively make that happen. So again, we always will evaluate that as an option, and it's always a matter of where we're going to get the best return for our shareholders.
Okay. Are you planning to spin off any of the new acquisitions via SPAC?
Well, as a matter of policy, we try not to comment on strategic matters until we really have a firm direction. I can tell you that we, continue to evaluate the fastest way for us to make some of the moves in the market segments that we want to make, both for the company and for the shareholders and shareholder value creation. We'll see. Some of it depends on really how we see the synergy of the various organizations and the various business units coming together. And right now, we really like all four of these business units as they're interweaving and supporting each other and helping us fuel nonlinear growth in that way. So again, can't say anything definitive at this point, but always evaluating.
Okay. Here's a fun one for you. If you had a crystal ball, where do you see the company in 7 years?
Well, it's always good to have a view of the future, and I try to keep my eye on, with the team here and input from all of our very capable and effective executives. Where are we going to go, and where do we want to see the company go? And we collectively see and believe that the Cyberlux Corporation can be a leader in the markets we're trying to address and serve. Growing market share to something that's commensurate with a leading company in those segments. Trying to return the best possible value to shareholders. And then I think, seeing the company emerge as, like I said earlier, a hardware, software, Palantir-like company would be one of my objectives. And that, I think, gets us a long way towards achieving leadership the way that we'd like to see in these various markets we serve.
Great. Next question. I'm curious over the SA infrastructure deal. Is this for buy order, or will this be for public sector government contracting? And will you be supplying the software applications for these structures when the design is implemented from end to end, or partnering with the energy supplier for the installations?
Great question. And I think, as we had discussed with Moon Market and OG Tigris, there are probably a lot of moving pieces in this space, and we have to come back and communicate effectively about what exactly is happening. We intend to evolve into an end-to-end solution for infrastructure, hardware, and software as a company, particularly related to a project like this renewable project. Right now we're focused on the first 30 hectares, power generation, and the best way to deliver that and generate profit. There's really two options we're evaluating. We have a couple of reseller partnerships that we're trying to determine that would end up selling the energy back to the grid. That would be, more of a public-private scenario for sure. And then the other one is an emergent opportunity with using that power generation to partner with someone on crypto mining, where we would supply the energy and they would supply the mining hardware, and we'll do a revenue share accordingly. There's a significant interest in renewable energy for the cryptocurrency mining market. We are not a crypto mining company, but we certainly would like to participate in that as a potential option with the energy generation. As we talked about with the guests in the prior interview, I'm a fan of Bitcoin, but it doesn't mean that we would not address others like Ethereum, et cetera. Right now, it's just a matter of us finishing the work on which direction we're fundamentally going to go. Like I said, I like Bitcoin, and it seems to be a stabilizing opportunity in something like this energy generation, as opposed to selling it to the grid, which can have lots of large price fluctuations, particularly in South America. So more on that as we get it together. And I will say that we'll have a more thorough discussion of the plan and what we're actually doing. And then as we go forward, we'll end up with an end-to-end solution like this, so that we are both a hardware and software provider.
Okay, great. Next question. Are you interested in funding at this time?
So we're actually, as I think we probably over communicated in some regards, we're focused on execution and the plans and the roadmap. We always continuously evaluate business opportunities as they come. That's what led us to RB Capital, by the way, and that great financing, and Brett and Deborah with their long-term perspective, which we really appreciate. Right now, we're just executing on the business and focused on the next best step, which investment banking partner to have join the team, how to finance in the future. Those are things that are strategic, and we're strategic decisions, and we're trying to make them in a very focused and stepwise way. More on that as we determine what we're doing, of course.
Okay. Here's a interesting one. Here we go. As Cyberlux is an advanced technology platform company now, and metaverse is the future, does Cyberlux have any future plans to jump into that space?
Well, I answered this question with an eye on one of the comments that someone shared with me, where someone was saying that we seem to jump to the latest and greatest things as a matter of focus. So I think that was some criticism aimed at our intention to evaluate cryptocurrency mining empowering that as a revenue sharing opportunity. I'll just point out that we don't have any metaverse plans at this point. I've studied it enough to know that it's going to be a huge, enormous economic benefit. All of the intricacies of owning and buying in the digital space, owning property and buying NFTs and all that stuff is fascinating. But that's not the business we're in. I can see some overlap in some of the work that's going on in FlightEye with the AR, VR technology. But that would be maybe a component offering that might have some value down the line. But there's not much more to say about that now. And I think we're focused on the here and now. There are plenty of people that are competing and winning in the metaverse right now. For us to devote any resource to that would just be foolhardy. So we're thinking in more concrete terms, like are we generating the proper IP? Are we supporting our 4 business units that are already in existence? And what can we do to help accelerate growth in things like renewable power with perhaps a foray into supplying a crypto mining partner with energy?
Great. Since you had a fantastic Q3, will you consider uplisting to OTCQB by year end?
I think all of our plans for uplisting are geared towards some time frame in 2022. We don't have a specific plan yet. There's a lot of progress being made in the business, so that really helps accelerate our thinking and the timelines. We're working step by step to get the company ready to take the next move. And I don't think we can commit to an exact time frame right now, but I do appreciate the urgency that people have when they see the whipsawing of the stock price. But we have to be strategic about how we do things in such a big move, and we're doing that as we evaluate.
Okay. Are there plans to do a reverse split to increase the share price to uplist to the NASDAQ?
No, that's not the path that we intend to take. I think I answered in a prior question about the total net asset value, and there are other ways that we can go about this to maximize shareholder value. Again, we have plans that have been developed, and we'll have some more to say in early, I think, first quarter about things like that. So,
okay, I think this is a follow-up on that. Also, can you explain the immense amount of dilution going on with your stock?
Yeah, I don't understand the idea of immense dilution. I communicated early and often back in the summer that we were reducing our authorized share count significantly. We went from 20 billion to 8.75 billion. I communicated in October in a shareholder letter that we expected the share count to go to 6 billion. I think we're at 5.7 now. I think we're up maybe 200 or 300 million since then. The process of growing the business encompasses both equity to close deals like that and to accelerate our growth initiatives into the future. I don't think we are in any way seeing immense dilution compared to what we had planned. Now, I will say that there have been some restricted stock that has become unrestricted, but we had restricted shares for years, and our unrestricted float was 3.7 billion for probably 5, 6, 7 years. So I don't really know what the comment is there. Those are just, again, part of building the future. So we have in that current dilution, we have plans and pipeline companies that are well into next year. So we're doing what we think is proper for creating shareholder value.
Next question is, what do you believe is the reason for your stock price not going up lately?
Yeah, I mean, there's been no one more frustrated than me as we have reported results and seen sideways or down movement. Um, you know, anything I say on this matter is my own personal prognostication. I don't have any insight that is beyond what our general shareholders have. I will say that we've seen short trading volume at over 50% of our volume for the last month, and I think that is an immense amount of pressure on the share price, and it just I think it capitulates at some point, and we've seen that. Now, again, at the end of the day, on Tuesday, December 6th, it looks like things have started to move back in the direction towards where we think the company is headed. So hopefully that will continue, and hopefully whatever battle somebody was fighting with our stock has been won or lost, and we can move on from here. So I'm very hopeful and appreciate everyone's support on that.
Great. Next question is, I'm doing some homework on CYBL, and I'm wondering if you can validate on DoD or GSA's website that you are an approved and active vendor.
Yeah, I've addressed this in prior Q&As, so I can just restate that not all the work we do is public, but some of the upcoming DoD work will be, and will be very communicative on that. I think you can see from the field exercises we were doing a couple of weeks ago that that's certainly where we want and intend to go with those types of projects. We also are in the process of renewing our GSA schedule, so we expect that to be completed in first quarter. So all those things are moving directly in hand. All the products that we are moving through our ALS or the other groups generally have a national stocking number, which is I think an important note. So that enables any government agency to be able to purchase. So that also is an enabler that we've had in place for a number of years now.
Awesome. Okay, there are rumors on Twitter that Cyberlux is running rampant with toxic debt and that you're not being truthful regarding the retired shares. Can you address this once and for all, please?
Right. As I said earlier, the company did have toxic debt in the past. Sometime in the 2017, 2018 timeframe. And I think you can probably go nail that down exactly when you see the outstanding share count just stopped. We basically turned our focus away from the Cyberlux stock until the toxic financiers could get out of the way, and their final conversions were during that time period. So it's been a few years now, and that's what caused the stock to drift to 0001. I think as you see the enormous growth since that time period, even a year ago, it's reflective of the fact that there wasn't any further toxicity to keep the share price down, and it's continued to grow. I do think the last month, 6 weeks has been an exercise in short selling manipulation, and we've had to as investors and long-term shareholders had to deal with that. But that's not toxicity, and there is no toxicity running rampant in the company. So I think you should check your sources with the wonderful anonymous Twitter accounts that seem to have key insight that I'm answering directly here. So no, we do not, and you can push back at your will and capability on those that are just spreading fuel for driving the shares down for their own short selling benefit.
Yeah, I think this next question goes into that due diligence accounts. Regarding some shareholder doubt, what credible sources, i.e. websites, personnel, etc., do you recommend for obtaining due diligence DD on your company? Can you provide a list via Twitter?
Well, I think that I would start with our filings. I mean, we brought them up to date for a reason, and there's a lot of good information. There's historical context in I think it was in the Q1, Q2 filings. So I would start there. I also think that, as you probably have watched the Q&A with Moonmaker, Moon Market rather, and OG Tigris, they're both very sophisticated in their due diligence work, and I would pay attention to what they have to say. I do actually. It's a really remarkable set of work that they do on your behalf. So I think it's important to acknowledge that. There are others out there, I'm sure. I just, I don't spend my time that way because we've got a lot we're doing to try to substantiate and grow the company. So that's where I would start. And, hopefully that will give you all you need to understand where we're headed.
Great. Next question. Can you guys do an independent audit of the company?
Yeah, we'll be audited in 2022, more than likely beginning in Q1. And the reality is we have this as part of the process for doing any of the uplisting plans we have. So it's going to happen, and we'll let you know as soon as we've appointed the auditor we're going to be using for that purpose. Great.
For the solar generation project in Colombia, do you already have a buyer for whatever energy you produce? And will it be tied into the grid, or do you go with a private company? Will this solar be backed by battery storage as well?
So we did talk about this at length in the prior video, but let me just restate that in our focusing on the 30 hectares of power generation and delivery, we are evaluating both selling to the grid with a couple of selected partners, or selling to a crypto mining solution provider, which would allow us to participate in that market vis-a-vis a revenue share that is more than likely going to be more stable and a higher profit margin for us, it appears. We're still evaluating that. As the exact partners and plan come to terms, I want to make sure we over communicate on this because it is a complex process, and it's one we've been working on for years. So it's coming together in a way that I won't say we planned exactly, but it's with all that background work. So this would be more than likely a private project with the grid, and then we'll just keep it as a private business deal with the crypto folks if we proceed that way. With regard to battery backup, we'll have battery backup for this facility. We already provide that with a solar generator, a solution that we have for the military. We'll use that same kind of technology to scale to accommodate this facility. And there's a lot of intellectual property that comes from these projects, so we're excited about that too.
Great. Next question. Are you involved with the development of battery storage currently?
Like I said, we do have battery storage that we offer battery power with all of our advanced lighting systems. And part of any AUS activity, unmanned aircraft systems activity, has to do with power management and including batteries. So we have a lot of capability and necessity in understanding how that component works in a system. We do, like I said, have battery storage that we use also for our solar generator that we have. So we'll leverage that to figure out the best way to apply battery power storage to our facility there. 20 megawatts is a big battery, so we have to always be mindful of the cost of that, but it is necessary so you can optimize the profitability of a facility like that.
Great. All right, next question. On the IR deck, there are mentions of Wolfspeed Strategic IP as well as L3 Harris Strategic IP in Q3 and Q4 of 2021. Will there be any additional details released on those ventures? Is there a possibility of a joint PR from those companies with Cyberlux confirming their relationship?
So just as a matter of policy, right, we don't comment on strategic matters where it would violate any of our competitive advantage, any partner requirements, any confidentiality. We have them on a chart because we are working, and the roadmap is representative of what we're doing. As soon as we can make announcements, we will. As soon as we have all the parts and pieces in place, we will. There's work going on that I think is well represented by the roadmap, so that still is active and accurate. And we'll be making announcements as soon as we possibly can, but we have to have everything come together to make that so. Obviously, we're interested in the same things that our shareholders are, and my focus is making sure that we create the right shareholder value in the process, and not just some immediate blip on the share price jump because of this or that. So I'm interested in not only the here and now, but the 5 years from now.
Great. Next question. On December 2nd, Cyberlux tweeted new strategic IP disclosure. Is that an additional strategic IP partner on top of the two aforementioned, or confirmation of one/both?
So I think this particular reference was regarding new Cyberlux strategic IP. And I do think we'll have more to say about that this month. So that was a specific reference to work that is ongoing inside this company that we think is fundamental and profound.
Okay, great. Next question. Can you confirm that Cyberlux does currently have ongoing contracts, POs with the Department of Defense, National Guard, Marine Corps, etc.?
So as I've said in prior Q&As, our work that is defense related is not always public. We are involved in some more public contracting and opportunities right now. So we'll do our part to communicate everything we possibly can. But again, we have to abide by our customer requirements, and we'll have more publicly facing contracts in the pipeline soon. I've discussed, I guess, that in a couple of prior Q&As, and certainly coming out of our field work from a couple of weeks ago, you can see how that will proceed. So we'll discuss what we can as soon as we can.
Great. Next question. How is the aggressive strategy with the quote unquote major New York City investment bank coming along? Also, are we still on pace for a late December, early January implementation? Have there been additional institutional investors that have been in discussion?
So we're on track with the plans that we have. We will have more to disclose soon, perhaps in January, as the questioner asked. I will say that there's other work going on with institutional investors that encompasses partnerships that we're working with. It also encompasses new board members that our new board member, Mr. Goodman, that we announced last week. So I think there is a lot of activity that will come to fruition over the coming months, and all the plans I think have been appropriately put in place. So now we're just working to execute those as appropriately as possible.
Great. Speaking of Mr. Goodman, next question. Has Mr. Goodman been able to consult on the aggressive strategy with the investment bank? Does he, based on his prior experience, believe in Cyberlux's ability to uplist to the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange? What, if any, changes does he see necessary in order to meet that objective? Share structure, share a sales/revenue, partnerships, etc.
Well, first of all, Mr. Goodman's been on board for a week, so we're just getting started in a lot of ways with the strategic work that we're going to do. He's obviously very experienced, as you've seen in his resume, Morgan Stanley, Bear Stearns, Bridgewater. I think he is digging in and will be instrumental as we are accelerating this process. I do think that, as we said in the press release, this is a real phenomenal and fundamental addition to the company, and it'll help guide us in a way that we have not had before, and I'm really excited about that. And I do think this is rocket fuel to get us there faster. As he digs in and we have more to say, we certainly will. I think all this takes time and energy, and he's totally committed to it, and we're totally committed to taking the insight and capability that he brings and making it so.
Great. Next question is the strategic IP. Are you working with L3 Harris, Boeing, etc., or are you developing technology using materials sourced from these companies? There is a massive difference. Will this month's announcement of strategic IP be a joint news release?
Well, we are doing both. But as a matter of policy, I'm not going to just throw our partners and our efforts out to disclose as an attempt to juice the stock for a short term. This is strategic. That's why it's called strategic IP. We have to abide by our own competitive advantage we're building, the partner requirements, confidentiality requirements. As soon as we can make joint announcements, we will. And we are working in both regards to the questioner's point. And, I think that's represented in the roadmap. And I think the roadmap is representative of what we are working on and what to expect.
Great. Thank you. The share structure of the stock is quite large and bloated, even with the share reductions. Without further reductions, climbing to a higher share price will be hard to justify. How do you plan on doing this?
Well, our share price will climb with the continued growth of the company as we grow organically, as we grow through acquisitions or through new customer acquisitions as well. We do expect the 700 million lost ghost shares to be resolved in first quarter. So that'll reduce the outstanding share count by 700 million. We do think that the authorized share count of 8.75 billion is something that can be lowered. I think I've addressed this in prior videos. We're working on that along with evaluating 2022. So we'll continue to address that as soon as we possibly can. And I'd just say that we've communicated in a shareholder letter in October 22nd for your reference that stated we were going to be approaching 6 billion in our strategy of acquisitions leading into next year even. So I think the plan is the plan, and we're executing the plan.
Great. Okay, next question is there any plans to reduce the tradable float? There's too much supply and currently not enough demand. Even when demand rises, the float is so large it only takes a few people with deep pockets to completely control the movement of the stock.
Well, I think that as I've addressed earlier, we've all had to watch the short selling manipulation as it appears. Again, I'm not an expert, but that's what it looks like to me. So I appreciate the point. Our float has not changed or had not changed for years and years and years, and we're growing again. So it's just part of the process. Again, as I've communicated in our shareholder letter in October, we see this as both a strategic growth through acquisition and through our initiatives that will help fuel organic growth into next year. We've communicated this, and the way to reduce the outstanding float is through buybacks, and like I said, we'll continue to evaluate that, but there's nothing committed at this point. The best thing that we can do is continue to grow the company and do so in as a most optimal way, with all things being considered, and that's what we're doing.
Okay, great. The next question here is there something earth-shattering that will be disclosed that will be an absolute game changer for this company? An example would be a joint press release with a billion-dollar company.
Yeah, I'd like to think that something earth-shattering would be more than just a joint press release. And we certainly have a number of those strategic initiatives underway. Many of them may be earth-shattering in a real context, with things that add enterprise value that we'll see not in the next month, but maybe in the next 5 years as it builds and builds and builds, which is, where we have to lead the company. And there's, of course, nothing more frustrating than watching positive announcements and seeing the share price move sideways or down. So I certainly understand the point of the question, and it's painful for everybody involved, and then particularly for those of us that are actually doing the work to generate the results. But we can't satisfy short-term market needs with our sacrificing strategic or competitive advantage. So what you hear us saying is what we feel is appropriate to say. When it's earth-shattering, we will absolutely be communicating that far and wide. But don't mistake, one earth-shattering event for a series of singles that help to move the players around the bases and score runs as well. And that's what we are trying to do on a day-by-day basis as well. Occasionally, the moonshot will get us to the moon, and that's we're also putting appropriate resource and investments in those so that we can take advantage of some of our core capabilities as we've already demonstrated.
Great. Next question. Why has the company not shown any income for DoD contracts per Usaspending.gov since 2015? Is it a matter of public record?
Again, I've answered this question in multiple videos. So just again, some of our work that's defense related is not public, and we'll have more public contracts going forward. There's some in the pipeline that I've discussed. So, I appreciate the desire to have as accurate and up-to-date information as possible, and we always strive to do that.
Great. What exactly are you getting paid for by the U.S. government? And that's currently speaking, not in the past. Don't need to name drop, but numbers for as far as how much are necessary for the shareholder sentiment.
So all of our business units will take advantage of U.S. government spending. Currently, advanced lighting systems, Flat Eye, the infrastructure technology solutions, and then next year we see the infrastructure software solutions getting some heft and some participation. So that's where those are inside the company, the business units that are actively engaged in that. I mean, I've spoken before about the infrastructure technology solutions group and the current infrastructure spending and the opportunities there. That's a great example of it. I think the advanced lighting solutions, you can see from our field exercise disclosures how that goes about, and there'll be more on that as we move into the future. The emerging ISS unit will infrastructure software solutions will also target government funding. And that probably is something in 2022 that's realistic. We have some core strength in the company now to help us target those opportunities, and we'll be doing as much of that as we possibly can.
Thanks, Mark. Well, I think that's about 55 questions. So I hope the shareholders appreciate that. We've been at this for almost 3 or so hours. So I'll leave it to you with kind of a closing statement. I know that was kind of one, but that's a wrap for the 55 questions that we went through today.
Well, again, I appreciate everyone's sentiment and the questions that you send. Obviously, there are a lot of concerns when we see the kind of share pressure that share price pressure we've seen over the last few weeks. So I certainly appreciate that, and I appreciate our longer term shareholders who are thinking in the future. For those that are in or out of the stock, I understand that too, and appreciate your support when you're in. And we'll continue to do our part to communicate as succinctly and as effectively as we can. And I'm always open to questions. So remember the IR_CYBL at cyberlux.com, and we'll address them as quickly and as thoroughly as we can. Thanks very much. And again, I think we've hopefully seen the start of a new round of positive sentiment to account for the results that the company has been posting. So look forward to the future, and thanks very much for all the support from our shareholders, and really do appreciate the questions and the feedback. Thanks very much.